Are you ready for some art?
SIG.
I really do love these old pieces of art featuring the titular Golden Daemon. I just think they look bloody wonderful. This here piece was painted by Bob Naismith. Now, Bob Naismith has produced loads of wonderful pieces of art over the years as well as miniatures, and I strongly suggest checking out his work for yourself. Seriously, go look him up. Anyway, this piece in particular was used as the cover art for the Citadel Monster paint set. This piece here, the Monster paint set, look how lovely it is. It's so good it needs to be framed and up on the wall. We could actually blow it up, like a movie-sized poster of this would be incredible, I think. Does anyone know where you can get a piece of art blown up to like movie poster size? If so, let me know, please. So this art portrays the aforementioned Golden Daemon. Yes, that Golden Daemon. The one the famous painting awards are named after. The Golden Daemon's been around for a long time. He must be about, 40 years old now. I myself have never won a Golden Daemon, but it's not really something I fancy entering. I don't have the patience and dedication to spend all those hours on one miniature. I do, however, want one of the old 1980s t-shirts they used to give out to the winners. I'd enter something if I could get one of those. The Golden Daemon here appears to be painting his little pet goblin things, and the colour he's using is red. The goblin doesn't look happy about it. I wonder which red he's using. Blood red? Or is it more likely to be Blood Angel's orange? A fantastic old colour. I do wonder if he's a fan of Slapchop. The victim goblin chap there being painted against his will reminds me of an old character from an old game. Ghouls and ghosts. Or was it ghosts and goblins? I forget which. Maybe it was both. He also had his own spin-off game, Demon's Quest or something like that. Let's look it up. Crest, not quest. I wonder if that was one of those Japanese pronunciation errors like Donkey Kong and Continental Circus, which were supposed to be called Monkey Kong and Continental Circuit. But that's a whole nother video for someone else's channel. There's probably a channel dedicated to mistranslated games somewhere. Anyway, I'm digressing, let's move on. Looking at the Golden Daemon's face, I feel I'm suddenly reminded of a geezer I used to work with. His name was Tim, a nice chap. We often used to chat about fish during our shifts together. We both frequented the same shops to get our fish and would often exchange hints and tips on fish health and growth, etc. Not sure why the Golden Daemon reminds me of him though. I think it's the eyebrow. Now I think we saw it before in another of the Golden Daemon pictures, but he again has that magic paint pot. The one that gives you the colour you need at any given time. I can't think of any downsides to such a device. Do you still need to thin the paint? My name's Marcel, and this is Snakeworks. Now, do you think it would be possible for someone to design and 3D print a version of the Golden Daemon's water pot? I would love to have my own instead of a normal mug water pot thing. This isn't my water pot, this is a drinks cooler holder thing, although it looks more like an insulator. Not sure how that works. Anyway, at the end of the day, it's just a pot with a face on it. How hard could that be to design? Look at it. Look, it's just a round pot. Struggling to see that there. It's just a round pot, a couple of eyes, nose, big mouth. You could even put the drips on, 3D, like design those drips on there. I think that'd be pretty cool, and then we could paint them afterwards, or leave them off and just make it out of like a weird sort of greeny black resin. I think it'd be very good. I'll have one if you're making one. In winter 2026, LEGO Duplo will be releasing their Space Marine Terminators. These ones always did look a bit amusing, very boxy, but also very cool. So what we have here are some of the early Space Marine Terminator designs, loved by many in the Oldhammer community. This particular piece of art is by one of my favourite Warhammer 40,000 artists, Pete Knifton. We've seen a lot of his work here on the channel, and all of it has been good. So this Terminator design or prototype was based on the miniature of the same design, known to the community as the Cobra back or beetle back. 10 internet cookies, if you can guess why that was. Many moons ago, I had one of these that I painted for the Rainbow Warriors chapter, but I have no idea where it went. Also, they are quite rare these days and can command a pretty penny on the Bay of E. These Terminators appear to be from the Ultramarines chapter of Space Marines. We can assume this due to the copious amounts of Ultramarine logos and symbols we can see dotted about the piece on the Terminator's armour. Fun fact, when I was a lad, I loved collecting Ultramarines, and then I grew up. They were really boring all those years up until the release of the Horus Heresy game. The Horus Heresy era Ultramarines are a lot more interesting. These Terminators are equipped with the typical Power Fist or Power Glove as it was known at the time. Also, they don't appear to be equipped with your standard Storm Bolter. This one actually looks more like a standard bolter. It only has the one barrel, unless it fires twice as fast. Would that count as twin-linked? One of the features of these chunky Terminators that I really like is their blocky heads, hence the Duplo reference from earlier. While the other more popular Saturnine armour has a P head, these guys have these. Very basic blocks with a grille. Oh, and some eyes. Maybe one day we will see a new version of these guys. We welcome you now to join us for a day on the front lines. This piece is by Warhammer 40,000 wonder artist Kev Walker, a common sight in these videos. Both the Imperial Guardsmen and the Rhino in this piece are of the old style, the classic Rogue Trader style, a look that I would argue is better than what came later. Luckily, Rhinos have reverted to this better look, but the Guard are still waiting. The Cadian look is just a bit too boring, for me anyway, and greatcoats don't really do it for me. Now, judging by the clues, I can only assume the Rhino is actually chasing the Guardsmen, or they are an allied contingent of sorts. The reason I say this is that the logo on the front of the Rhino there, the capital M, is the original Thousand Suns Space Marine logo. Either that or the Imperial Guard stole one when the Marines weren't looking, which is a much more amusing reason. If you were to take a moment and have a look at these Guardsmen's flak jackets, you will notice they are in fact asymmetrical. One side is different to the other. Word on the street is that this design was lifted straight out of the Strontium Dog series from the 2000 AD comic, along with a lot of other things such as the drop site massacre in Rogue Trooper. Oh, and the Rysar pattern lasgun, again from Rogue Trooper. I think all the influences would be a fun video for another time. I really like the look of the texturing on that Rhino. The chipping and wear there gives it a very tough, armoured look, almost like a concrete pillbox on tracks, which I think is pretty much what they're supposed to be. How could we simulate such an effect in miniature form, do you think? Roll it around in a box of rocks or something? If you have any ideas, let us all know. The headlight flare there on the front of the Rhino reminds me of the ones you saw in old Japanese animations. The one that first comes to mind though is when the Ecto-1 leaves the firehouse in the Ghostbusters cartoon intro, and yes, that was from a Japanese animation studio. All the best ones are. Now, I always wanted the Ghostbuster toys as a kid, but I never had much money and I never got them. And that's a sob story that Mrs. Snakeworks hates to hear. It was so hard for you growing up. It wasn't hard, just had no money. I also had no toy shops near me in the area. I lived in a little village and the first toy shop was about a 20-minute drive away in the car, which my mum never wanted to do. But what I did do is like to build all the toys I did want from scratch, from cardboard and other old toys. Kit bashing, I guess, if you will. I once made a cereal box proton pack from an old cereal box and some of my mum's elastic from her sewing to use as the straps. Worked very well, I was very pleased with that. I also made the Ghostbusters firehouse from an old shoebox. I remember sticking some levels in there to make the levels and a stick of some description to make the fire pole. I also drew some little Ghostbusters logos out onto paper and cut them out and stuck them to various things, and also a little Matchbox van I had and stuck their logo on the side of that, giving me a Ghostbusters car, my version of the Ecto 1, the Ecto 0.5 if you will. I guess when I was doing that I was kind of making my own paper decals or decals or decals or however the hell you pronounce it, transfers. I guess maybe being poor kind of helped with my creativity. If there was something I wanted, I had to make it myself. I used to make all sorts of things. I remember making actual transforming Transformers, although they were 2D, they would just sort of fold and become something else. And become something else. I also remember making my version of Laserbeak, the G1 Transformer, the Decepticon bird that transformed into a cassette tape. I made it from a square piece of Lego and just stuck other bits of Lego on it to be the cassette, and you would just rearrange the pieces to be a bird. I made that when I was about 4 years old. I still have strong memories of that. It was also the first instance I remember of breaking something and forgetting how it went together in the first place, and always feeling like it was never quite as good as the original version. No matter what you did, you couldn't make it as good as how you made it the first time. And I've had that issue with things ever since, and I've just realised that's where that originated from. So there we go, a little bit of therapy for us all today. Laserbeak, the bastard. Anyway, I am really waffling. Oh no, we also need to talk about the Thunderbird 2 I once made out of big bits of cardboard, and I coloured it all in green with a big green marker pen, and that must have taken ages because it was about 18 inches long, and it even had the pod that went in and out of it, you know, the pod that would hold Thunderbird 4. But my version of Thunderbird 2 had a sloping front, but it didn't have the full dynamic curve of Thunderbird 2 because that's literally all curves. Mine was just flat on the side with a curved sort of beak shape down the front. It's hard to explain. Anyway, if you fancy talking about making your own models as a child or anything else hobby related, then please feel free to come along and join us on our friendly Discord server, which is not behind a paywall. There's a link to that in the description below, and I'll also stick one up here for you too. We look forward to chatting to you there. This weekend at 6 PM, the highly anticipated remake of Lord of the Rings, where Frodo and Sam are equipped with sniper rifles. Watch this, Mr. Frodo. Ah! Good shot, Sam. I would actually like to watch that movie. If you're not already aware, this dastardly duo are in fact Ratlings. Not rat people, just abhumans with the name Ratlings. They're really just the Warhammer 40,000 version of halflings, or hobbits. They even have big furry feet and enjoy their food. Hey, maybe I'm a Ratling. I really like this piece. I think it's full of character, especially in their faces. Look at them, so cheeky, it's awesome. This particular piece is by Paul Bonner. Mr. Bonner did a lot of pieces of art featuring the Imperial Guard, and all of them are fantastic. We need to do a special on him one day, I feel. An interesting thing I've noticed about the Ratling snipers is that they never wear helmets. What's the reason for this, I wonder? Do they not come in a size that small, or do they feel they just won't need them? It's interesting. All they do seem to wear are peaked caps and ski goggles, like what us cool kids wore in the 90s. It's radical. Frodo and Sam's sniper rifles have an interesting look to them, very big and bulky. They actually remind me a little of an AK-47, but a lot chunkier. Maybe the AK was the inspiration behind them. The rock they're hiding behind, on the right hand side of the picture there, has some markings on. I think these are the Hobbit's kill tally. Who do you think they're shooting at? Knowing the timeline, it's probably orcs, as it was always orcs back then. Nowadays, it's always chaos.
David, you idiot! The artillery was supposed to be pointing towards the enemy, not away from it.
So here we have an Imperial Guardsman getting a bit of a telling off by 40k artist extraordinaire Pete Knifton. All of these Imperial Guardsmen are wearing typical attire for the era. Era appropriate, if you will. I think I've said it before, but I think this is the best look that the Imperial Guard ever had. It's simple, yet also futuristic and realistic. I really like it, and I would love to see it return in some capacity or other. What I like about this piece is that we have a mixture of Imperial Guard units or types. There's an officer in there, some normal tactical guys, and also some heavy weapons chaps. I don't think there are any assault squad guys in there, but I might be wrong. They usually have the Gundam inspired jump packs on. Something I quite like about this officer is his fashion sense. He has a breastplate with the Miami Heat logo on it. I do like the Miami Heat, but I've always been more of a Charlotte Hornets fan myself. I think that is because I played them a lot in NBA Jam on my friend's SNES back in the mid-90s. That was a great game. At first, I thought the guardsman in the middle of the picture had a turret on his shoulder, like the Predator. But it turns out it's not, is it? It's just the barrel poking out from the guy behind. Speaking of the Predator, did you see the new one, Prey? Well, I say it's new, it's a few years old now. Anyway, I thought Prey was okay, if a little dull. It was nowhere near as good as the first two. The guardsman, holding the large object on his shoulder, is most probably a heavy weapons operator. To me though, it looks like he has a big camera. Maybe he's an Imperial propaganda artist. I'm surprised those guys don't exist in the game in some form or another. A little like that journalist scene in Starship Troopers, I guess.
It's an ugly planet! A bug planet! A planet hostile to life between...
You know, after closer inspection, that cameraman looks like one of the heavy weapons troopers from the last scene in Moonwalker, Mr. Big's Troops. I wonder which came first, the Moonwalker heavy weapons troops or the Imperial Guard heavy weapon trooper designs. They can't have been that far apart. They must have been making and conceptualising Moonwalker in around 87 or 88, which is when these Imperial Guard heavy weapons teams came out. So maybe someone saw a photo and copied the other, or maybe it's just coincidence. However, in my experience, there's not really such thing as coincidence. Normally someone has stolen another idea, or borrowed it, or been inspired by, I think is the correct term. I was inspired by that. Anyway, I do remember seeing Moonwalker at the cinema as a child. Can't remember what year it actually came out in. Must have been 88 or 89, and thinking it was really very good. I loved it when he transformed into that spaceship at the end. However, I did not enjoy all the music video elements at the beginning as a kid. I found that really boring, but nowadays I'd probably quite enjoy them. And also, I remember the special effects of when he was a robot looking really good and smooth for the time. And something I also found out about that movie, I always thought that was early CG work, computer generated work, but I since found out it was all actually models. Which is why it looks so good, because everyone knows practical model work looks bloody amazing. Now, speaking of amazing, if you're enjoying this video, then please consider liking it and subscribing to the channel. That means you, Michael. If you are enjoying the content on the channel, then please consider joining us on Patreon, the link to which is in the description below or up here somewhere. Or you could even become a channel member, which is becoming all the rage these days. Again, there's a link to that in the description below. Private Parts, we've been waiting for you. Please report to the commissariat at once. Now sadly, I'm unsure of who the artist responsible for this piece is, but I think it's Pete Knifton. If you can confirm or deny, please let us all know in the comments below. So what we have here is an officer of the Imperial Guard, or Imperial Army as they were known at the time. I'm not 100% sure of when the name change happened, but I don't think it was long after the release of Rogue Trader, maybe a year or two. This officer gentleman has a uniform which is quite similar to that of a commissar, albeit with a few differences. There's no big black greatcoat for starters. He does, however, have the peaked cap. Both officers also wear those lovely boots, which remind me of socks that are too big, working their way down the leg. One of the world's most uncomfortable sensations. I always wanted to know something about these peaked caps some of the officers wear. Specifically, what is the shiny peak part made of? Is it just plastic? It seems a little cheap for an officer just to be wearing shiny plastic, but metal also seems way too heavy. I need to find out. The officer's breastplate has a nice rendition of the Imperial Aquila logo on it, a version I've not seen before or since. The Aquila itself is holding a knife in its feet, or should I say talons. I feel we need to see more of this version of the logo. Also, I don't think it's intentional, but the body of the Aquila reminds me of a hand grenade, and that's awesome. When it comes to personal weaponry, the officer is carrying a sword attached to his hip and another unknown weapon attached to the other side at his thigh. I can't tell what sort of weapon this one is, maybe a knife or a dagger, or perhaps a sawn-off shotgun, like the one Mad Max likes to use. Some impressive artwork there. Be sure to let us all know which was your favourite piece in the comments below. And as always, thank you very much for watching.